President Buhari today continued meeting with members of the Security Council seeking ways of permanently solving the spate of attacks. And parents of abducted Kaduna students took to the streets of Abuja to ask for government's help to free their children from the den of their abductors. Hello everyone and welcome to Politics Today on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimaloe. Some sharing news first on one of the 17 remaining abducted students of Greenfield University in Kaduna State who has been released by the bandits. Although the police and government authorities are yet to formally comment on the development, the mother of the freed student, Loretta Atairo, to China Television about her son's release, but refused to give details of how her son was released. It was gathered that the parents of the abducted students had been negotiating with the bandits individually, with the abductors asking each of them to pay as high as 20 million naira before they eventually demanded for a bulk of 100 million naira and then motorcycles yesterday. With the release of the student, the fate of the remaining 16 is still unknown, even as the bandits threatened to kill them if their parents and government failed to pay the 100 million naira ransom and also provide them with 10 new motorcycles. Meanwhile, parents of the 39 abducted students of the College of Forestry Mechanization, Afaka, in Kaduna State have protested to the National Assembly over what they describe as the negligence of the government in securing the release of their children. This is coming about 2 months after the abduction of the students from their hostels in March the 11th. 10 of the students were released in 2 separate batches in April, while 29 of them are still in captivity. So much to talk about tonight. But before we get into it, we have some more stories for you on our political roundup.
The presidency is reading the Riot Act to anyone who may be plotting to use the current security and other challenges facing the country to cause a forceful and undemocratic change of leadership. Such a move, the presidency states, is not only illegal but also treasonable. The presidency is reacting to the security alert by the Department of State Security, cautioning against sinister moves by some people to wreak havoc on the corporate existence of the country. In a statement, the Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Mr. Femi Adesina, explains that evidence shows that the affected persons are now recruiting the leadership of some ethnic groups and politicians around the country to pass a vote of no confidence on the President. The Governor of Ekiti State, Dr. Kayode Fayemi, has declared that the state may have to brace up for some hard options with the current economic situation. The governor makes a State of the State economy address to stakeholders in the state capital, where he declares that options for consideration may include suspension of the minimum wage, 50% increase in internally generated revenue, and withdrawal of subvention to state-owned tertiary institutions. Governor Fayemi laments that the state's ranking in revenue generation and tax application compliance have been low, as he also decries the lack of political will on the part of the country to take decisive steps on the issue of fuel subsidy. The House of Representatives is asking the Inspector General of Police to take over the case of the murder of Miss Inyobong Umore, who was killed in Akwa Ibom after she was lured with a fake job offer.
Note that Miss Inyobong Umore.
The House is charging the IG to ensure that justice is done and the family of the deceased is well protected. The resolution of the House follows a matter of urgent public importance raised by Representative Onyema Idem from Akwa Ibom State. And the Ogun State Independent Electoral Commission has announced Saturday, July the 24th, for the conduct of the much-anticipated local government polls in the over 4,000 electoral units across the 20 local government areas of the state. This was communicated by the chairman of the electoral body, Babatunde Oshibodu, in Abeokuta, the state capital, during an engagement with leaders of political parties and members of the civil society at the cinema hall of the June 12 Cultural Center. He also announced a waiver of 200,000 naira and 150,000 naira respectively for women contesting for the post of chairmanship and consulorship posts, as their male counterparts are to pay same amount for purchase nomination forms from the commission.
Some more news about elections. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has commenced the verification exercise for new polling units created from the existing 57,023 voting points across the country in order to increase voting access for electorates in the next general election. The INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, said today that after a tour of some of these polling units in Abuja and Nasarawa State, that the commission will continue to increase the number of polling units as the number of voters increase. Professor Mahmoud also notes that the new polling units will be open for activities as the commission begins the continuous voter registration on Monday, the 28th of June.
Recall that as part of our engagement with stakeholders, we showed images of some of the most congested polling units in the country from Karu in Nasarawa State. So I here to verify that the right thing is being done, converting those voting points to polling units and relocating them as per the Commission's guidelines. So what we have done basically is to build on what we did in 2019. Recall that we are converting the voting points used for the 2019 general elections into polling units. Autonomous polling units are relocating them. But this is going to be a continuous process. One exercise will not solve the problem. But we hope we have established the mechanism that going forward, the Commission will be adjusting the number of polling units as the number of registered voters increases. So this is the whole idea. So when we do the voter registration, which will commence on Monday, the 20th of June, we'll give citizens the opportunity to choose the new locations. Our hope, and we are confident that our hope is that we will not see this kind of congestion again in future elections.
Well, let's get into our conversation for tonight. President Muhammadu Buhari today reconvened a meeting of the National Security Council at the State House in continuation of the efforts towards resolving the current security challenges. However, the meeting ended without any of the participants addressing journalists on the outcome. At the last meeting, the National Security Advisor stated that President Buhari was determined to reduce the insecurity in the country. According to the president, the insurgents, bandits, criminals are still at it, and there is no doubt that the Nigerian security agencies, with the cooperation of all, will overcome all the current problems. The president said that violence on innocent people by anybody and any group is unacceptable and indefensible. The presidency went further to say that hate and bigotry have eaten so deeply and violates the sanctity of life. He says that if we allow this culture of violence to go unchecked, such mobs would destroy law and order. And at the National Assembly, the chairman Senate Committee on the Army, Senator Ali Ndume, has raised the alarm that Boko Haram insurgents are once again regrouping in the northeastern region of the country, specifically in Borno, Yobe, and Adamawa State. Tonight, our focus on the program is on the National Assembly and its role in all of these trying times that the country is confronted with. I'm being joined on the program by the Senate spokesperson, Senator Ajibola Basiru. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Thank you so much, Senator, for joining us tonight.
Good evening, Shehu.
Thank you. It's no doubt a challenging period for the nation. And perhaps we should begin the conversation from what you're doing and the Senate and the National Assembly in helping the executive in resolving these issues. There was an intense debate last week over the state of security in the land. What has the Red Chamber come up with as a cause of the rise in the security crisis and the attacks that we have seen in the country?
Yeah, thank you, Shehu. And I think the topical nature of issue of security cannot be overemphasized. At the plenary of the Senate, last week, the issue of security was thoroughly considered, and the leadership allow all shades of opinion and position to be taken on that. Eventually, certain fundamental resolutions were agreed to. One of the resolutions has to do with seeking audience with the presidency on the need to further take the issue of security very serious. And of course, you can also see from your roundup that there has been the security summit of the top level operatives and the officials of government at the federal level to address the issue of security. It spilled over from last week to this week. So I believe that this is part of the offshoot of the resolution of the National Assembly. Secondly, the National Assembly, particularly the Senate, resolved to also have a closed-door meeting with the head of security agencies. The meeting ought to have held today, but for the National Security Summit being held at the presidency. So the business of the Nigerian Senate on Thursday will be to have this closed-door session so that the representative of Nigerian people in the Senate will be able to hear directly from the heads of the various security agencies what have they been doing, what are the challenges, and in what way that the National Assembly could be of support. And of course, at that plenary sitting, the Senate President, Dr. Habib Lawal, made it clearly the readiness of the Nigerian Senate to support in terms of any necessary legislative reform and, of course, power of appropriation and oversight to ensure that there is a value for money for the country and that proper equipment and the technology is deployed towards addressing the issue of insecurity. And of course, on a more fundamental note was also a resolution that seek for the National Assembly to look at its previous report on the security situation in the country, whereby certain far-reaching resolutions were taken, which, if implemented by the executive and also legislated upon by the National Assembly, will be of help in addressing this very serious problem of insecurity. And one of these has to do with looking closely at the security architecture and coming up with a framework to decentralize the Nigerian police structure. As it were today, the size of the country geographically, the size of the population, and the competence in terms of manpower and technology is such that we will not be able to address this problem of insecurity. And it's also very important to point out that this issue of insecurity has to be looked at it from two perspectives. There is the high-level insecurity, which is of a military grade in the form of Boko Haram insurrection and the so-called act of banditry, which actually should be characterized as subversive element trying to undermine the unity, cohesiveness, and the peace of the country. So they should really be seen as not just mere offenses, but as offenses of a treatable nature, and that constitute a direct threat to national cohesion and national security,
Senator,
and should be addressed in a military way.
Senator,
And of course, the general insecurity of petty offenses, armed robbery, kidnapping also have to be taken with all seriousness that they deserve by ensuring decentralization of the police along zonal line with budgetary autonomy and operational autonomy.
Okay. Senator, before we go much deeper into this conversation, security challenge in this country, since our independence, Nigeria was just about 6 years old when we went into the civil war. We're due for a break, but the question I was asking is a lot of Nigerians want to know what caused the sudden spike and the spate of attack that we saw. All of a sudden, the whole nation seems to be engulfed by this security situation. Just in 10 seconds, what do you think caused this spate of attacks that we've seen?
I don't think it's something we can deal with respect in 10 seconds, as you said. And of course, the problem of insecurity has been pervasive. we should not, why not making an excuse for the present state of insecurity, we should not forget that at some point there were even security incidents at the nation's capital. There was a situation whereby international facilities like that of United Nations had actually been subject matter of insecurity in the past. It has been a perennial problem. We could also not forget that at some point, some large portion of Nigerian territory had actually been part of the regime of the insurrection. So it's a gradual process, possibly what I consider to be lethargy on the part of security agencies, possibly overstressed because of the problem of insurrection, and possibly because we have not been able to rededicate ourselves, re-energize, and look at dynamic nature of criminality in the modern day. So there are a lot of factors that has to be examined and critically to be able to address the problem of insecurity.
So we'll be looking deeper into the role of the National Assembly, what you and your colleagues are doing in ensuring that this nation is united and secure. But we go for a break, and when we come back, more on the way out of the security challenges this country is facing. Don't go anywhere. Senator Ajibala Basiro, Senate spokesperson, is still with us. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us right here on Politics Today on Channels Television. Senate spokesperson, Senator Ajibala Basiro, is one that is sitting in, speaking for his colleagues and the National Assembly tonight on the role of the legislature in the face of these daunting challenges that the nation is faced, that is insecurity. Let's begin again. At the level of the All Progressives Congress, which is in the majority, and the caucus at the Senate and the House of Reps, I know you'll gather around and speak about some of these issues. How are you handling the criticisms coming from your fellow lawmakers? Today they spoke up and they were asking, they have put in question members of opposition raising doubt about your party's capacity in handling the present security situation in the country.
I think being a member of a political party would not derobe you from the right of expressing your view as you may think so at the level of the plenary. It does not mean that the party itself does not have its own focus. And I would say that it's legitimate for individual senators who felt the tension in the town and as the pulse of the people to so express what I may call their frustration, to also express their concern on the need to address this. It is part of the democratic process. But that is not to say that the political party and our government, both at the executive and legislative level, are not doing much in that regard. You will discover that in terms of successes, a lot of territory that had been taken over by the Boko Haram insurgency had actually been reclaimed under the present administration. In terms of legislative intervention, which is in the purview of the National Assembly, I can make a mention of the reform of the Police Act, which was a kind of a reform of a law that had become moribund, that is almost a decade old. You will also see, in terms of appropriation, to be able to ensure that the Nigerian security agencies are well equipped and are well resourced. That has also been an area where we have used our power of appropriation. Of course, everywhere in the world, and I say this without derobing from the importance of the need for us as a government to attend to the issue of insecurity with all seriousness that it serves, is confronted one way or the other with the problem of insecurity. The challenge has always been how you be able to rise up to the occasion and address these challenges. And as you can see, the president rising from the security summit just concluded about this evening, and of course with the interface that the National Assembly will be having with the security chiefs on Thursday, solutions and therefore proper directions will also be given in order to address these challenges. I take the view that even when our party was not in government, it has not been that there has not been problem of insecurity. But we cannot pass the buck. We must take the bull by the horn. We have responsibility as a political party, as the party in government at the executive and legislative level, to do all to ensure the security, and we are definitely committed to that, and we shall do that. So I believe that with all these efforts, with all the hands being on the deck, and with our commitment to make necessary appropriation in terms of strengthening the personnel requirements, in terms of technology-driven solutions to our security challenges, and in terms of looking at institutional framework for more effectiveness and for a robust engagement with the stakeholder in the security sector, we will be able to overcome this challenge. What makes human being to tick is the ability to be able to overcome such kind of challenges. This is a challenging time for our country, but with cohesiveness, with dedication, with commitment, and with sincerity, we believe we overcome the problem of insecurity.
So I'm going to ask you now to tell us, what have you been successful in as the Senate or the National Assembly in terms of legislation since this uprising began? What have you been able to come up with?
The job, in order to address your question, you first know what is actually what are the functions of the National Assembly. Our functions is threefold by the Constitution. One, to make law. I've made reference to the reform of the Police Act, which is being implemented and which has introduced the idea of community policing. So in terms of legislative intervention, we have been able to come up with that. Then secondly, in terms of our engagement with the stakeholder in this regard, I've also mentioned the Security Summit called by the National Assembly, and which has come up with far-reaching resolutions, which is part of what is on the table in the National Security Summit that is being held at the executive level. Then in terms of appropriation power, if you look at the appropriation since particularly the 9th Assembly has been put in place, we have given ample consideration not only at the level of service-wide vote, but level of specific procurement of necessary equipment, fighter jet for the Air Force, strengthening our Navy, and of course, getting modern equipment for the ground forces has been part of our appropriation. Of course, expansion of capacity of the law enforcement agency is also part of appropriation. So I would say that both in the area of lawmaking and the area of appropriation, we have been able to do some. Then the third aspect of our function is that of oversight. I am a member of the Committee of the Senate on the Air Force, and I know that in the past 1 year, we have been to virtually all the formations to see for ourselves and be able to make necessary suggestions in order to ensure that the capacity and utilization of resources deployed are used in a way that goes into fighting insecurity and for efficiency, and to stamp out corruption in those sectors.
Perhaps on a final note, there's been debates over creation of multi-level policing in the country. Some governors have come out to say they want state policing. Give us an update on the stance of the Senate in this regard. What are you and your colleagues thinking about what the governors are asking for? Some of them will say they don't have the powers. We heard the Minister of Information saying that some of these crimes and criminality is happening around the country. The state governments at those levels should be responsible for those situations.
I would say that the Senate has not taken a position, but I am aware as a member of Constitutional Review Committee representing my state of Osun, there are 2 bills already before the Constitutional Review Committee of the Senate, headed by the Deputy President of the Senate. And that is a bill from my humble self, Ajibola Bashiru, talking about setting up state police. The other bill is from the former Deputy President of the Senate, Senator Ike Ekweremadu, also on the same subject matter of setting up state police. I also have a bill, to my name, which also seek that even within the context of the National Police, there should be decentralization along 7 zonal lines, such that there will be zonal advisory council and zonal command that would be budgetarily autonomous and also operationally autonomous to ensure that the challenge of geography, the challenge of population, challenge of manpower, and challenge of easy deployment will be addressed if we centralize the police. I believe these are part of legislative action that are in the pipeline to address the problem of insecurity. And I surely believe that there's a need for the state authorities to have a say, to have power to be able to address problem of security. You cannot call a governor chief security officer of a state when he cannot even command a divisional police office. Then the large nature of our country will not accommodate the overly unitarized and centralized police structure that we have in Nigeria.
Senator Ajibala Basiru, Senate spokesperson, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Yes, I'm happy being here talking about this very important discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. But that's our show for tonight, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm Sean Kimale. Bye for now.